If I had a nickel for every time the Cleveland Cavaliers disappointed me and with a really annoying and bad Game 6 loss after an impressive Game 5 win, and it resulted in us being in Game 7, I would have two nickels this postseason run, and there's only been two rounds. I fucking hate this team. Okay, so let me explain to you why the Cleveland Cavaliers are even in this situation to begin with. I did not do a recap of Game 6 yet. And the Spurs have obviously moved to the conference finals, but there's literally no reason at all to talk about that game. That game was over so quick. That game was over so fast that I don't even think it really warrants me qualifying or talking about that series. We're going to talk about the game 7 that is obviously coming out today. Okay, so let me explain to you why the Cavs lost the previous game. I know you're probably thinking to yourself, how could the Cavs lose the last game? They won game 5 on the road, and they had been undefeated at home up until this point. So what could the Cavs have possibly done to? They just got out hustled and outworked, and then fucking Kenny Atkinson refused to sub out Sam Merrill throughout the course of this game, and Jalen Duren finally had a game where he looked like an NBA big. Not to mention the production and effort that they were getting from Paul Reed this series, which is something they thoroughly lacked in the previous series in Orlando. I still have no idea why on God's green earth Paul Reed was not used in more minutes in the previous series, considering how dog shit Jalen Duren had been the entire postseason up until this point. But that is neither here nor there. I would like to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers because I feel like it is very obvious to talk about the Cavs and why they lost the game, more than it is really even evident why the Pistons won. Yes, Cade Cunningham had a great game. I think that has been talked about to death at this point. Cade is great. Is anyone surprised that Cade is good, considering he was in MVP discussions? Even though Cade has been also pretty bad at holding on to the ball, the Cleveland Cavaliers as a whole have been turning the ball over at a historic rate. The fact that they even have a chance to win Game 7, considering all of the turnovers that this team has accumulated in just the first two rounds, has been disturbing. Another thing that I would like to highlight is in the game 5 where we won, James Harden did not have to be the primary ball handler and initiator, because in moments of that game we had Ausar Thompson in foul trouble. When Ausar is in foul trouble, that means either Mitchell and or Harden don't have to deal with him. Another adjustment that JB Bickerstaff finally made and that Kenny Atkinson has still yet to make is deciding that they don't need to run their shooter that many minutes. Yes, Duncan Robinson is a good part of this team, and his threes are huge and they matter a lot. That being said, if the defense is suffering for Duncan Robinson being out there, especially considering him being in foul trouble, yeah, they should rely more on their depth. It's another thing that I don't know why fucking playoff teams just stop doing. They stop doing that. Sometimes playoff teams look at their depth chart and the reason why they were as really good as they were in the regular season, and they just decide, we don't need to play all those guys. We're going to rely on our core guys, and this should get us through this. I don't know why fucking playoff teams do this, especially when they have a deficit and something that needs to be addressed. Jalen Duren had been ass the entirety of round 1, and he has been ass the entirety, with the sole exception of game 6, of this entire series. I just would like to point out that the fact that they hadn't played Paul Reed up until game 4, is questionable. And Jimmy Bickerstaff is already lucky that his extension has already come in, because these would be grounds to fire any other coach in the NBA. Let me talk about some just news around the NBA really quickly, because they're not going to make it into a full video. We're not going to talk about this. Steve Kerr has an extension, and there's an extension with the Golden State Warriors, and so that just screams to me we're running it back for the 30th fucking time, which Golden State should have blown this shit up since 2022, considering how they just considerably. I just don't know what the fuck Golden State is doing. Golden State should have torn this shit down a long time ago, especially considering they didn't want to give Steph real help. They didn't want to double down and go out and get any of the stars that could potentially help this team. They never wanted to draft a real big. And when they did draft a big, it was fucking James Wiseman. No offense to James Wiseman, but he's in the exact same draft class as Anthony Edwards, and he's already out of the league. In fact, he's been out of the league for a year now. Now, James is completely unlucky. There is no debating about that. But he has played less basketball games than Greg Oden. Think about that. The Warriors have desperately needed a big for a long time. He has played less games than Greg Oden. He hasn't been a Warrior for the past 3 years. So there's that. And also, when he looked like he was going to come back for Indiana, he tore something. And I thought he could have been really fine in Indiana, especially considering this was about the time where they were about to get Tyrese Halliburton. Or I think Halliburton had just become a Pacer. That would have been something that would have actually prolonged his career, in my opinion, but the injuries just kept piling on. I think he could have developed in Indiana, for sure. All right, that's enough of talking about the coaching things that are going on in the league. Let's talk about my fucking head coach, Kenny Atkinson. When this series is lost, when we lose this series, if we lose this series, I do want to point these things out because I think they're just going to be thrown under the bus and they're just going to be handed out to Harden. Donovan Mitchell has never made the Eastern Conference Finals. Him and Embiid have a pretty much the exact same tenure in the playoffs. Neither one of these guys have made an Eastern Conference Finals. It is not just the failings of the teammates around him. It is also the failings of Donovan Mitchell. And I think that that's being tossed under the radar a lot. Now, I do want to say this. Donovan Mitchell is being guarded by Ausar Thompson. That is probably one of the worst fucking matchups that any perimeter star could ever hope to have on them. But here's why. One, this is not the end-all, be-all, and there are plenty of other perimeter-oriented players that could easily deal with Ausar Thompson. And here's the kicker. Ausar has been in foul trouble this series. Yet, and still, I do not see Donovan Mitchell consistently getting free throws. The reason that he was as effective as he was in the Pacers series last year and series prior to that is because he was getting to the free throw line. Now, his signature move, that windmill crossover stuff, there's a reason why Wade is known to have originated the move, but it was not his go-to move. This was a move when he was shying away from contact. Whenever you see that move, just know that it's coming into a floater and that it's likely not going to result in free throws. So whenever I see that move, honestly, I'm going to be honest, it looks pretty. It is aesthetically pleasing to see. It is a good idea when there is no big behind, when there isn't a big sagging or playing drop, right? If you attack the first guy and you get past him, what you should do is jump into the chest of the bigs and draw free throws. Donovan Mitchell is too smart of a basketball player to not know this by now. The floater is not it. It's probably the easiest thing to combine off of the move, but that would just lead me to think that the move is not as effective as it looks. 2, James Harden is going to get a lot of blame for this series. Kenny Atkinson should get more of it. James Harden, I am not going to lie to you, has had this reputation of being a choker for a very long time. I don't think you guys realize this. Harden has had this reputation of being a choker for such a long time that it's honestly mind-boggling. But I really want to just unpack how long Harden has been this good for him to even still have this label in the first place. Number one, yes, Harden did shit the bed in Philly, but so did Embiid. Yes, Harden was injured in Brooklyn, so there's not really a whole lot to talk about that. In that series, Embiid was unhealthy and just unhelpful there as well, and they did not have enough perimeter scoring. It was really just him, sometimes Maxey, and the rest of the guys. So again, when you can double, triple, and look at Harden the way that you do, without him having a lot of help, yeah, that's probably why he looks so bad in the postseason later into the games when they've made adaptations to start to slow him down. Yeah, okay. And 2, Mitchell has been ass this entire postseason run. There have been 3 games so far where he's been good. There's been 3 games. We're closing in on 14 games. 3 out of 14 games so far, he's been good. And if you don't want to say that he'll have a good or bad game yet here, okay, that's fine. Even though we're closing in on that being a 5th of the games he's been good in. But, I'll give you a break. 3 out of 13 games. That means there are 10 games where I'm going to be honest, he's been bad. Now, to be fair to him in those games, there's been elite defenses against them, right? There's been great defenders, there's been great size that they can throw at him. No one is giving this same bail to other players in the league. We're not doing that. We don't do that for a lot of other players. And considering that most people think that Donovan Mitchell is a fringe top 10 player, if not de facto top 10, I need to see top 10 production in the postseason. There is no excuse for someone who's averaged 28 points in the regular season to be averaging, what, 23 points in the postseason so far, and that's including the games where he's balled all the way the fuck out. I think he's averaging 23 points per game. I'm not gonna double check that because I just don't feel like it, but yeah, that's been really bad. The turnovers from Harden have been bad. I will say this: he's limited the turnovers in the past 2 games. Limited them in the past 3 games, to be honest, and it feels like he's found his footing. I also think that Harden is likely playing through an injury this postseason, and that the people have not been realizing it. Ever since Harden had that hand injury, he has been much more proactive in turning the ball over. I think that's something that we will learn about at the end of the postseason, that he's likely playing through an injury. That's the same bail that we're going to probably find out for Julius Randle, that he was also probably playing through an injury. That being said, Julius has been fucking awful, and I know people have been talking about it. The 3 straight games of 12 points is the least that I could say about the goddamn guy. They're paying him way too much money for him to be this bad, and they already gave him an extension, so they're stuck with him. So the trade rumors, I don't know where the fuck you guys think he's gonna go and receive anything for. That's not gonna work. This idea that the Timberwolves are gonna be able to tear this era down and start anew around Anthony Edwards just doesn't make a lot of sense. And if I'm Anthony Edwards, why would I want to leave? They've already set it up for me to be the guy. They've set it up for me to get paid. People already really, really respect me and where I'm at currently. I'm pretty sure he's comfortable with where he's at. Like, just, I don't think Anthony Edwards is the type of guy who just wants to pack up and leave when it going gets tough. So I don't think you need to worry about that, at least for another 2-3 years of disappointment. Maybe then his competitiveness makes him want to look elsewhere, but I still don't think he would leave. He's going to leave anytime soon. So you guys really don't have to worry about that. I think Anthony Edwards is very secure with where he is right now. As far as the Cleveland Cavaliers, if they lose Game 7, what do I think they should be doing? Tearing everything down. They should be tearing everything down. See what you can get for Donovan Mitchell. I don't know what you could, to be quite honest, because Donovan Mitchell, despite being a top 10 player, is talent-wise, is kind of overpaid. He's kind of be overpaid for a second option, especially in today's CBA. I'm not really sure what you can get out of him or what you can trade him for. I think his value has plummeted, especially considering how bad he's been in this postseason. You probably should have traded him last postseason, to be quite honest. I thought out of the 2 guys that would be moved, I thought that he was obviously the guy that they needed to move. If they had to think about moving Garland and him, it was the guy that they should have moved. Is him, because they could have gotten more value out of him, obviously. And also just didn't see Garland ever being moved. Now that we're in this era where we've doubled down and we're committed to Harden, the only untouchable nigga on this roster is Evan Mobley. That's just a fact. I think people have been very disrespectful to how good Evan Mobley has been over the course of just this entire postseason run, to be quite honest. And this is especially considering that he is not a ball handler. Yes, he's turned over the ball when he's handled the ball. I just want to point that out. But this entire team has had turnover issues. And the way that they talk about their turnovers, the way that they even, like, Kenny is even addressing the turnovers is just not enough. It's not. Kenny might be in firing territory, to be quite honest. We've had a 64-win team, and yes, we were injured the previous year. That's 100% true. This season, we have completely reconstructed the roster. It's been completely different, and I know Kenny's had to deal with learning these guys' play styles and stuff like that, but I just don't think it's worth the financial commitment to Harden and Donovan Mitchell if this team's going to suck like this. I just don't think it's worth it. Clearly, I don't think Evan Mobley is a max caliber player either, and he's due for that soon. So there's that. This team is in a very awkward situation. Honestly, I think they should just shed Harden's money. If that makes Donovan Mitchell want to leave, then trade him. I don't really know what more you can do, to be quite honest, with this team in its era. But assuming they win Game 7, sky's the limit for this team. This team has been as up and down as it's possibly getting. I don't think that after going 7 games with a 60-win team, after going 7 games with one of the toughest defenses in the league, I'm not really disappointed with the outcome of how they are going so far. But so if they can come out on top on Game 7, I know it's going to be tough to ask. They've only won one road game this entire postseason. There's been a 13-game sample size of them, and if we're talking about just road games in period, there has been there's going to be 4 in Detroit now, and there's been 3 on the road. They've played 6 total road games so far. They have one win in those 6 ones. They also have one loss at home in their what 7 home games so far. So there's that. I don't know. I really the way they lost game 5 was not game 5. The way they lost game 6 was just very disappointing. Words cannot like describe how badly that went. But if they win game 7, the sky's the limit for them. I don't think that they're any less contenders than they were today before or after. I don't think that they were dark horses. I always thought they were in the relative pretender tier. They could be contenders if everything goes well, but shit has not been going well. They've been turning the ball over at a historic rate. Now, to be fair, to be 100% clear, whichever team comes out of this series is going to be a tough matchup for New York. I don't know why people are just pretending that the Knicks are just going to sweep through whatever team they match up against here. The Knicks have had the softest side of the bracket so far. I just don't think that people have been honest with themselves. If you are honest with yourselves, you will see that the Knicks are just not as good as they've been playing, right? I don't think that's going to change all of a sudden if Detroit comes out of the series. And for everyone else wondering if there's something that I need to talk about with the Spurs and OKC, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to save my thoughts about this team until we see them on the court. Now, I'm pretty sure, and like 1,000% sure, that they're still missing without Jalen Williams. OKC has played this team a lot. We've seen multiple different lineups against them, and OKC has lost damn near 95% of the games. They played them 5 times this season. OKC has only won 1 game, and they played against a lot of variants of this team. A lot. This variant is no different. I don't. And by the way, the fouling and stuff that Caruso and Lou Dort get away with normally is not going to work against Wemby. I do not think it'll work. The 3-guard lineup and rotation that they've been running is going to be exhausting for a Cason Wallace and a Caruso. It's going to be exhausting for an SGA. I don't think SGA will be used to get involved as much. I think that's going to be an exhausting series for him. I am not worried about Wemby in the slightest in this series. I'm not. They don't have anything for him. Chet is not enough, and Hartenstein is probably the better matchup of the two. Even if Chet is going to be the help defender, that just means that one of the shooters is going to be wide open in Julian Champagnie and or Devin Vassell. So there's that. And then as far as the bench matchup, Keldon Johnson has been bad this entire postseason run. I do not expect him to suddenly be good, but I think Dylan Harper can show us a little bit more. I think Dylan Harper still has another gear to show us. And what Fox can do for me really is just bother Shea. I predict the Spurs to win this series in 6 games. Perhaps, and if OKC is going to win this series, it's going to be in 7. Because I just don't. I think Jalen Williams coming back and how they have to implement him, and with the shots that he's going to have to take, is going to be very curious and interesting to see in the postseason. Obviously, they did it well in regular season games, but it's not the same in the postseason. It's just not. And the continuity that Jalen Williams was able to replicate in last postseason's run it's not going to be the same here. It's going to be difficult. He's coming off hamstring injuries. He's got the wrist injury still. I just don't think that he will be as productive as he had been in the last postseason run. And they're going to probably need that as much as they've needed it in any series. That includes the series that went 7 last year in the finals. They're going to need guys to step up to the degree that they had Jalen Williams step up in that postseason run, and I just don't see it. As far as San Antonio, I think they can grind out a win. I think they're the better defensive team by a long shot as long as Wemby's on the floor. And also, I think Kornet can be serviceable. I do not think that the Thunder's defense is going to just completely negate what Kornet does, because what Kornet does, frankly, it just doesn't show up on the stat sheet. A lot of offensive, I mean, it does, but the offensive rebounding and the putting the ball back in the basket and just cleaning up plays, that's something that Kornet can do for you very well. I don't think that that's going to be something that they can negate. It's not something you can scheme for, clean up guys. It's an effort thing. And I think Chet's going to have his hands full. I think that Hartenstein is going to have his hands full. I think that Jalen Williams is basically unfucking playable unless Kornet is on the floor. So there's that. I'll be interested to see what the lineups of the Thunder looks like. And no, I don't look like Jalen Duren. So, yeah. But if I'm not going to lie, the way Jalen Duren's been playing, man, it might have been me out there. I don't know. With all that being said, like, comment, subscribe. That's been a lot of the recap. That's been all the recap that I've had. That's been talking about Steph Curry and the Warriors re-signing their head coach. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. All right. Peace.